Hey everyone, Ryan Badgley from the Barfly Tailgate Show, and football season is kicking off, and I know you feel like I do, so to steal a phrase from WWE superstar Daniel Bryan, yes, yes, yes! And I also know you are like me and you love the work Allen Robinson is putting out on the football field, but also off the field. That's why we're so pleased to partner with the Allen Robinson Within Reach Foundation. Their work provides educational opportunities and resources to low-income and inner-city Chicago students to help put success within reach. How can you help? Immediately you can visit allenrobinson12.org and learn more about what they are doing and make a donation. If you can't donate money, can you donate your time? The foundation is always looking for volunteers. And please let others know about their great work. In the coming weeks, the Barroom Network will hold some fundraising efforts, and we hope that you'll be a part of those. And again, let your family and friends know. Now, how about them Chicago Bears? I'm so psyched up for this season. I think A-Rob has 100 catches and double-digit touchdowns. Now let's bear down.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well, not for a guy of his caliber.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
Listening to the Ballroom Network. You're listening to the Ballroom Network. The following program is intended for all audiences.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well, not for a guy of his caliber.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
Doug Buffone.
This defense sucks. This is moronic.
John Buffone.
Your best run plays are coming off end-arounds, there's a problem.
Doug was behind the microphone first. He never held back.
Very difficult to score when your offense is on the bench. When your defense is out there giving up 70, 80, 70, 64-yard drives.
Now, it's his nephew, John, and there's no holding this Buffone back either.
An offensive-minded coach that's running an offense that got 9.5 yards. A beaten-up defense that isn't necessarily performing in key situations. And a quarterback that was expected to take a big step forward looks like an unsalvageable wreck.
I've had it. I have had it. I want somebody to get kicked in the ass.
How many games can you rattle off that involve the team running the ball 7 times and they win? I can't think of any.
I don't mind you getting beat. I got my ass whipped many times. But I tell you, I took somebody down with me.
Because Bears fans wanted to believe in the worst way that Chicago had a stable, competitive franchise. And this is what we got.
It's Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Listening to the Ballroom Network. The following program is intended for all audiences. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Goon Podcast with your hosts, Joe Mandel, the Goon, and John Santucci, the Tooch. We're bringing you the fantasy football knowledge that you need every single week.
Derrick Henry still going. Stays in bounds. He might go 99 yards for the touchdown. Unbelievable.
Flushed out again all the way Okay, it's time for the easiest part of any coach's job, the cut. Now, while I wasn't able to cut everyone I wanted to, I have cut a lot of you. Steven, I like your hustle. That's why it was so hard to cut you. Congratulations, the rest of you made the team. Except you, and you.
God bless fantasy football. There are many things a man can do with his time. And this, better than those things.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Goon podcast. I am your host, Joe Mandel, the Goon, and joining me, as always, is my co-host and good buddy, John Santucci, the Tooch.
Hello,
What's
Joe.
going on,
Hello,
buddy?
Barflies. Week 1 is in the books, and, it's a little early to tell on certain things. I think the season still needs some breathing room to figure out what's going on with fantasy, but we got some ideas, and that's what we're here for. Right, Joe?
That's right. We're here because week 1's over. There's been some injuries, Tooch. There's been a lot of hot guys emerging out of nowhere. And here we are going into week 2. There's some big names available out there. There's some big injuries. And we're going to get started with just that, Tooch. So let's talk a little bit of injuries. So there was a lot of injuries week 1. Not really a surprise for anyone, new to this whole COVID situation, but no preseason. And then you see all these injuries happen in week 1. So I'm going to run through this list. I'm not making it up. It's real. So Kenny Galladay dealing with a hamstring injury. James Conner dealing with an ankle injury. Miles Sanders dealing with a hamstring. Phillip Lindsay dealing with a toe. Cortland Sutton dealing with a shoulder. Michael Thomas, big name, top first-round pick, dealing with an ankle injury, expected to be out several weeks, according to the latest report. Chris Godwin, another top-tier wide receiver, dealing with a head injury. I believe he's in concussion protocol. And then Le'Veon Bell dealing with a hamstring, also going to be out several weeks. And Tooch, one of the best tight ends in football, George Kittle, dealing with a knee injury. What do you make out of all the injuries week 1?
Some big names up there. But with those big names out, we're going to give you some new names. Guys who are filling in, right, Joe? Who had some production behind the fellas who were injured. I don't think Kenny Galladay played, right, Joe?
No, Kenny Galladay sat out week 1.
That's right.
But it's something that's going to be lingering for him, and who knows if he's good to go this week against Green Bay.
Right. His Phil and Quintez Cephas had double-digit targets, Joe, so that might be a name you want to check out while Galladay is mending. So Quintez Cephas, 10 targets, only caught 3 of them against that Bears defense. But 10 targets, quite a bit. Double-digit targets is what you're looking for.
Well, I think either way, you got to explore adding them to your roster, especially in deeper leagues. I'm in a 16-man league, Tooch. I'm in a 17-man with you for the guillotine, right, which is a whole nother beast, but we'll get to that later. But it's something you really got to consider, adding a deep guy with a lot of potential.
Yes. Yep. And George Kittle, we don't know what his status is, so that's a big blow. If you have Kittle, you're looking for someone to fill in. I mean, if you have Kittle, you're probably only carrying one tight end for a little bit. Any suggestions, Joe, for a streamer? You're streaming now if Kittle's out.
Yeah, my streaming tight end is I watched the game last night. Tennessee, they're really using Jonnu Smith to his athletic ability. I love Jonnu Smith. Watching last night's game made me want to own him in every single league, just because he has that breakout potential just to go long on a defense, truck a guy over, and kick his ass. Jonnu Smith for me is that guy. So
a lot of
I
people
love him.
Picked him to be a breakout season. He had 4 catches, 36 yards, and a touchdown. There's also atop the target leaders was Dallas Goedert,
Yeah.
And right behind him was Logan Thomas, the former quarterback on Washington. He had 8 targets, caught 4 of them, 37 yards and a touchdown. He goes against Arizona this weekend, so that might be a sneaky start, Joe.
Yeah, tight end's an interesting position, Tooch. You could even look at a guy like Cole Kmet, who had some good targets, and Jimmy Graham on Sunday for the Bears. Both of those guys could be good streaming candidates if you need them in a pinch.
7 targets for Graham and a touchdown. Probably could have had 2 touchdowns in that game, Joe. That'll be a sneaky start, too. I think you'd easily stream Jimmy Graham. Jonnu Smith is probably going to be owned in half the leagues. Another guy I'm thinking of is Chris Herndon, who had 7 targets, caught 6, 37 yards, didn't find the end zone. He could be a big pickup. And, of course, last night you saw Noah Fant with a big game, Joe.
Yeah, Noah Fant, a guy we've been talking about as
He's
a
still
potential
available
breakout.
in a lot of leagues.
He is available in a lot of leagues. He's going to be a hot waiver wire acquisition, Tooch. And let's jump into that. Who are some hot guys to pick up off waivers? We'll lead off with Noah Fant. Obviously, the tight ends used heavily and often by Denver, and he got the ball a lot yesterday. And he looked very athletic, very strong. His hands are good. I think he's what you're looking for in a fantasy tight end.
Yeah, a second-year tight end right now looked like a guy who's ready to take on a full-time tight end role. His rookie year is behind him. He's on his second year, and he looks like he's breaking out. And Drew Lock, a little better than when we thought too, Joe. He's got some good weapons with Jerry Jeudy and when Courtland Sutton is fully healthy, and Noah Fant.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the waiver wire acquisition targets someone's talking about in the chat here, Tooch, and Aaron Current, the Bearded Bears fan, talking about Benny Snell. Of course, that's going to be a big name out there because James Conner dealing with an ankle injury. He's someone I actually left off that injury list. James Conner, no one knows exactly what's going on, how long he's going to be out, but Benny Snell got a lot of work in that game last night, Tooch.
Yes, he did. Went over 100 yards. Now, James Conner, I guess we'll know more tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure.
If it's a high ankle sprain, he could be out for a while. And then, of course, you're going to want to place that claim in for Benny Snell. But, Benny Snell, not much of a receiver out of the backfield like Conner is. So I got to imagine when Conner is healthy, he's going to come back and he's still going to get a lot of play. And the guy that we talked about, I think, last week, Joe, was Malcolm Brown, who I said would take that starting job. And he looked like the best of those 3 running backs. Looked very good.
He did 2 touchdowns.
Had a big day. I recommended picking it or drafting him in the 16th round.
I did in one of my leagues.
So Malcolm Brown, a guy that looks like he'll hold on to that starting position for a bit until the other guy. I mean, Malcolm Brown's a 5-year veteran. He's been with the Rams for quite a while, knows the system, knows what the coaches want. I think he's probably the best of the 3. Cam Akers,
I agree.
They drafted him pretty high, but he's still a rookie. And then Darrell Henderson, he's a second-year back, and he's hurt. So I think Malcolm Brown will be a hot waiver wire pickup. If you're looking for fab bucks, you're going to want to go 20% minimum, I think, to pick up Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, I mean, you got to spend to win, and I think Malcolm Brown warrants that, especially with all the goal line carries we saw too. This is a guy getting fed. Yeah, you gotta take that. And moving on from Malcolm Brown is the guy who's probably the most valuable on this list. I put him as the number 1 waiver wire pick this week, and that's Nyheim Hines out of Indianapolis. So for those of you who didn't see, Marlon Mack went down with a torn Achilles. He will be out for the rest of the season.
Right.
So that leaves Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines.
And they still have Jordan Wilkins. And he was on the team last year. But
they do. But I'm saying Hines has that role as that receiving back.
Yep.
And there's no giving it back.
Nyheim Hines is, he's in that mold of James White, Tariq Cohen, Chris Thompson, those players, the pass receiving backs. So he has a guaranteed role. there's nobody who likes to dump it off more to the running back than the Indianapolis Colts quarterback, Joe. Philip
No
Rivers.
doubt. Philip Rivers. That's why Austin Eckler was so good when he was there.
Nyheim Hines, he's on pace for like 120 catches. So if you're looking for someone, he had 8 catches. He led all running backs, 8 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. That's that guaranteed roles. He also added a touchdown on the ground. Now, Jonathan Taylor, he's still a rookie. We got to remember. So Nyheim Hines has been there. He knows the system.
That's right.
Probably a little bit better in picking up pass protections. Now, I agree with you. Nyheim Hines is probably my number 1 running back pickup. Although there is a kid I really like, Joe, and I'll trash talk myself later. I picked him up, but I dropped someone that probably is going to be a hot waiver wire pickup. But it's James Robinson on the Jaguars, and he had like 100% of the team's carries for the Jaguars.
Yeah.
He looked really good. I don't know if you saw some of his highlights. This is a kid.
I did. It was filthy.
This is a kid that we Verlissimo and I had talked about before the draft, and we're like, man, this kid, Illinois State, he's not great. He does good at a lot. He's good at a lot of different things. He's very solid, and he didn't blow up the combine with athletic stats, but he's just a kid that's good at football. He's got some shifty moves. He's got a nose for the end zone. He can catch. And if you saw some of those highlights, he can run too. So James Robinson, I think, James Robinson is a number 1 running back on an NFL team. So
absolutely, he exceeded my expectations on Sunday. I think he's got to be a close second on waivers. And Tooch, I'm going to go with the local boys here, the Bears. I think you got to target Anthony Miller on waivers after what you saw out of him on Sunday. Unbelievable touchdown catch towards the end of that game. And I think he's going to be used more often this year. I mean, this is a good time to get in on that Anthony Miller sweepstakes.
Yeah, finally. Finally, we get what we've been waiting for from Miller. If you're a Bears fan, he was right there with Allen Robinson as far as Robinson 9 targets, 5 catches, 74 yards. Anthony Miller 6 targets, 4 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. So Miller outscoring Robinson for this week. And, this is Miller's 3rd year, right? This is when receivers usually break out, is in their 3rd year. So, of course, Allen Robinson still that main. I expect Robinson to still be the main target,
Oh, for sure.
But Miller's a good number 2. So if you want to pick up a number 2 receiver on an NFL team and stash him on your bench, spot starts and good matchups, you can do a lot worse.
And I like Anthony Miller, but I do like this next rookie. I think I like him a smidge better than Miller this week on waivers, Tooch. And I'm talking about Laviska Shenault out of Jacksonville. The kid just looks unbelievable. Great start to his NFL career.
Yep.
He's available in a lot of leagues. I mean, every league that I'm in, he was available except for the Guillotine League, which I drafted him just on a whim, and that's a 17-man league. You definitely got to look for him. I mean, Laviska Shenault is a guy that we were hoping the Bears were going to draft.
Yeah, I was really big on him before the draft. That size and those kind of moves and that strength, you just don't find that often in a receiver. And, this is a guy that does a lot of stuff. He'll take a direct snap, shotgun snap and run at the goal line. He'll line up as a running back, line up in the slot, take the end around, return kicks. He's a kid that does a lot of stuff, Joe. If he could stay healthy, it's great. He is a grown man, too. He'll throw people around trying to tackle him. So he's just a strong kid. I think he goes about 6'2", 220. And he's fast, and he's got some great moves. He's got some good lateral movement. Yeah, a guy I really wanted the Bears to get. But we did pick up 2 really good players, in the draft.
No, we did, for sure. You can't argue with that. And Tooch, why don't you talk a little bit about Russell Gage? We have him on this list. He had an impressive game on Sunday. What are your thoughts on Gage?
Well, he's a guy that had nearly as many targets as Ridley and Jones. And, this is what we talked about before the season with Matt Ryan putting the ball up 600, 650 times in that Dirk Cutter Falcon offense. It's going to be crazy.
Tooch, real quick, how many passing yards did Matt Ryan have on Sunday?
450 passing yards.
450. The closest behind him is Rodgers with 364.
Yeah. Well, we said it would be crazy with Ryan this year. I targeted him a lot of drafts. I think I got him in only one, but he just started to go off a lot earlier than 6th, 7th, 8th round. He started going in the 5th round, Joe, and by that time the quarterback runs were starting a little, like we talked about last week. Quarterback runs started a little earlier, and we missed out on guys like Ryan. But I'll tell you who you could have gotten that looks like he's going to be a pretty good player for fantasy quarterback, and that's Josh Allen, who I was kind of down on. I picked him up and as a backup, and I think he can give you some, Lamar Jackson light numbers this year. He's got good weapons. He's got two fairly good running backs, 2 really good wide receivers, and a decent tight end to throw to. They have a great defense, and they've got a pretty good offensive line. So Buffalo, a great chance to win that division, and Josh Allen, he's going to put some points up with his legs. Went over 300 yards for the first time in his career passing, and also ran for 54 yards and a touchdown. So, is Josh Allen, Joe, an every week starter for you if you had him?
Well, I think you got to keep watching him, but I do think that he's going to be matchup based for sure. And if he keeps using his legs like he did, he's going to be a weekly starter for sure.
You got to love that upside.
He's got so much upside. I think that's why I love him as a backup, but I love him even better as a guy to potentially take over your starting spot at quarterback.
I've got him as a backup to Drew Brees, and I got you and I were talking before the show tonight how Brees and Brady. We expected big things from them in the first week. I know it's only the first week, but they
fizzled.
They looked like they were over 40 years old, Joe. So.
Well, hopefully they get a little bit better. But yeah, definitely the young blood is definitely taking over in the NFL. That's for sure.
Yeah. So if you, I'm thinking about as Allen as my number 1 quarterback and Brees as my backup. I know Brees is traveling to the Las Vegas for this matchup.
I love Brees this week against Las Vegas, but I
Even
think after
without
that,
Michael Thomas.
I do. I think Emmanuel Sanders and another guy that they can pick up too is Traquan Smith,
right? Who looks to fill in that Michael Thomas role, and of course Jared Cook is still there. Joe, I expect a big week out of Jared Cook as he starts to take some of those Michael Thomas targets.
It's like you looked at my starts and sits, Tooch. But real quick, before we finish up our waiver wire claims, we got a question in the chat room. So Luis Vallejo wants to know, what's up, good guys? What's good, guys? Tight end help. So I have Hooper. Do I give him one more week with Njoku out and grab a running back like Hines and Brown and pick up Jonnu? Or do I grab Goddard and forget it?
I would rather have Goddard and Jonnu than Austin Hooper. Baker Mayfield, I just don't think he's that good of a quarterback, Joe.
I think he's going to be a dud at 1 overall in the future. But I agree with you. I really like Jonnu and Goddard. So if you can grab either one of those guys, I think you're doing great.
I agree. I would start either one of those over Austin Hooper. However, I'll tell you, Goddard is having a lot of success because teams are focusing on Zach Ertz, which leaves Goddard.
Wide open,
one-on-one, and wide open. So, but Jonnu Smith is a really athletic tight end who is a lot of experts predict will break out this season. I'll tell you, the Titans. I don't think there's a better team in the NFL that runs play action better.
They do run it well. Henry couldn't get much going yesterday, but
the fake to Derrick Henry, and then they've got AJ Brown and Jonnu Smith, running around on those play action fakes. So that's why I like Tannehill this week against the Jaguars. That porous Jaguars defense. I don't know how they came up with a win there in Indianapolis, Joe, with all that offense that the Colts put up. But the Jaguars are scrappy. They're a team that's kind of a lot like their quarterback. I think Minshew's a guy that I'd rather have over some other guys out there. I think I'd rather have Minshew over guys like Burrow and Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, and I could probably think of a few others, but
that's right.
Minshew's a guy that's going to be putting up the ball a lot in garbage time.
That's right. And we got one more question before we finish our waivers. Should I target Brown or Hines on the waiver wire? PPR spot. He had Le'Veon Bell, who's going to be out for a few weeks. If it's a PPR league, I would say target Hines. But I mean, I love both of these guys. Like, you can't really go wrong with either. So I'd put in a claim for both and make the first claim for Hines, second claim for Brown. Tooch, would you agree with that?
I agree. Yep. If it's PPR, for sure, you want to own Hines. Although, I mean, Malcolm Brown, I think he was the only one of the Rams running backs to catch any passes in that game.
That's
true. I like Hines. You know he's going to have that guaranteed role. And this is a guy that we always talked about, James White. I know White's, I think, is banged up right now. But White's a guy that just seems to finish in the top, 15 to 20 running backs every year in PPR because he's got that guaranteed role to dump off, and Hines, I think, could be, a step above James White. He's in that same mold, like we said, Tariq Cohen, James White, Chase Edmonds, those kind of players, the smaller backs who catch the ball in the backfield.
Absolutely, brother. And let's quickly finish up the last couple waiver targets before we get into the rest of the show. Adrian Peterson, obviously a guy you got to target, came right into Detroit and basically immediately became the starter. I mean, this guy does not age, and he gets a great matchup this week against the Packers, Tooch.
Oh, he looked fantastic. I mean, he was running hard, and he's the best back there right now, I think. I mean, long term, I still like DeAndre Swift. I don't think Kerryon Johnson is going to get much play this season. If you drafted him, you could probably drop him. But Peterson is probably, at least for the first part of this season. I mean, maybe DeAndre Swift comes in, as he gets healthier in the second half of the season, he starts to take that role away from Adrian Peterson. But while the Lions are still, the season's still early and they're still, playing for a division.
Oh yeah,
Peterson should be the every down starter.
And Tooch, another running back that's in a brutal fight with Father Time is Frank Gore. Le'Veon Bell, just mentioned by our previous chat comment, is out for several weeks. So in comes Frank Gore to be the starter in New York. Definitely someone worth taking a flyer on for at least 2 or 3 weeks.
They just keep going and going. Peterson and Gore, huh, Joe?
That's it. Yeah.
I tell you. I know that a lot of experts say Josh Adams is the back to own, but I just don't see it. I just think Frank Gore is just, he just seems to take the role away, wherever he goes. He just seems to get enough play, to do, to carve out his carries, his touches. So I like Gore to be the back there, just like we said Peterson would. I don't see any threat from Josh Adams.
I don't see it either, Tooch. And it's just about time to move on to our fantasy gold games, Tooch. But we got one more question. They keep coming in. The chat room's popping tonight.
Yes.
So Keswick 3 wants to know, boys, I'm working on a trade. I'm giving Chubb, Gurley, and AJ Green for Julio Jones and Saquon Barkley. Do you like it?
I like the Julio part. So
I like that you're getting Julio.
Saquon Barkley has got a tough schedule, man. He only had single-digit yards against the Steelers. I mean, Steelers are going to make a lot of players look bad, but so he'd be getting Barkley and Jones. With Barkley, I mean, you're going to have to. Their schedule is brutal. They're playing the Bears next week in Chicago, and that's a tough defense too.
And look at his stat line at the bottom of the screen: 6 yards rushing on 15 carries, and 6 receptions for 60 yards receiving. Yikes! Yeah. But the receiving is a silver lining, that's for sure.
Right. So he's getting Barkley and Jones, and he's giving up Chubb. Who else is he giving up?
Gurley and A.J. Green.
A.J. Green looked pretty good, man.
Surprisingly good.
And Chubb, Chubb's a good player. He's got the concussions thing going on right now. He's given up Gurley. Gurley looks pretty good, and then A.J. Green is a guy who could surprise. Just I like the Jones and Barkley end of that trade. So
yeah.
I mean, Julio's the best player in that, and then you're getting Barkley, who's probably end of the season going to help your team win a championship. I say take the trade.
Yeah, I mean, he said he was weak at wide receiver. He needs an upgrade, and I think that's probably a good upgrade. The only issue I have is if Gurley stays healthy, he could be an MVP candidate, but, we're going to wait and see there.
Right.
But, yeah, Tooch, what do you say we move on?
Let's get into some fantasy gold games.
Let's talk about the fantasy gold games. And our buddy in the chat room, Adam Schaum, says, I would absolutely do that trade. So thank you, Adam. We appreciate that. But fantasy gold games, we did break it down.
We broke it down. We like the trade to make the trade.
I talked myself into it throughout the course of that conversation.
Yeah, me too.
But the fantasy gold games, guys, these are the games in fantasy this week that you want to pretty much get every single player active that you can. And it's a fantasy gold line. So here we go. Fantasy gold games of the week, Tooch. Why don't I read the first three and you read the last three? How about that?
All right.
So I'm going to say Panthers at Buccaneers. I think that's going to be fantasy gold. The Bucs were, they didn't look good on Sunday, but the Panthers defense looked horrible. So I think that's a remedy to get that Bucs offense firing on all cylinders. And then Teddy Bridgewater and company actually looked surprisingly decent. So I'm interested to see how they play against that Bucs defense. Lions at Packers. I think that's just going to be fantasy dynamite. Neither team's defense is all that great. Green Bay got lit up, but they still won the game. Detroit could not hang on late against the Bears. So I love all players in that game. And then Tooch, a surprise game on this list. I didn't think it would be, but I think it is. The Washington football team playing the Arizona Cardinals. I think that is going to be a fantasy gold game. Whoever you can get on both sides of the ball. I just expect there to be a lot of points scored there. That Washington defense was surprisingly stout, so I'm interested to see what the Cardinals can do against them.
Yeah, Tooch, what about the defense improved too? They added some pieces that their pass rush is a little better, their coverage is a little bit better. Washington, you saw what their pass rush could do. They sacked Carson Wentz 8 times. Chase Young and Ryan Kerrigan rushing the passer in Washington. That game might be a little lower scoring, but we'll see. I mean, it could blow up though too. I just think
absolutely,
defenses are playing better. Those two teams.
And what about the other 3 fantasy gold games of the week, Tooch?
Oh, the Ravens, the Texans on Sunday.
Oh yeah, licking my chops.
Yeah, Texans with no defense. Ravens have a really good defense, and they're putting points up as well with Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Marquise Brown. The Texans, I think you're going to see Deshaun Watson have to throw a lot on Sunday against that Ravens defense. And then you've got the Patriots and Seahawks at the Seahawks. Patriots traveling across country Sunday night. Bill Belichick says every time they played Russell Wilson, he's given them problems.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. That's going to be that'll be probably a big scoring game. They can get Patriots and get that passing game going. Cam Newton. You saw what the Seahawks and Russell Wilson could do with their passing game. Even with the lead, they were letting Russell Wilson throw the ball up. Now
they were.
You got Saints traveling to Las Vegas on Monday night.
Oh, I love that game.
That will be a nice big scoring game. Both offenses are pretty good. Saints have a pretty good defense as well. They're hurting, though, on the offense. So I think that'll be a really good game.
The battle of the tight ends. I think the tight ends are going to be highly involved in that game, Tooch.
Right. Former Raider Jared Cook. Now with
current Raider.
Current Raider Darren Waller.
Waller the baller.
Yeah. That'll be good. Like we said, with Michael Thomas out, look for guys like Jared Cook and Emmanuel Sanders and Traquan Smith to soak up those Michael Thomas targets.
Absolutely, brother. And hell, what do you say we work our way into our starts and sits, huh?
Yes.
So, moving into our start and sit segment. Here we go. Let's lead off with quarterbacks, Tooch. Aaron Rodgers looked like himself on Sunday. He was tearing up the Minnesota Vikings. Rodgers looks like a must-start for the entire season, but I think you definitely got to start him against the Detroit Lions on Sunday.
Absolutely. Minnesota defense overrated. They're banged up. They don't have good cornerbacks. Aaron Rodgers was able to just carve them up. Detroit, they're an okay defense. I think I'd look for Aaron Rodgers to have a big day and the Packers to come out with another victory.
No doubt, man. And, you really got to keep an eye on this other guy, Tooch. And this is a guy that's been slipping under the radar as a must-start, and that's Cam Newton. Playing Seattle. He's using his legs. He's using his arm. Cam Newton is on this list for the foreseeable future, Tooch.
Yeah, he looked rejuvenated, Joe. Able to do it with both his legs, and through the air he had an okay day. He only attempted 19 passes. So I'd look for him to do, hopefully a little bit more. He had a 100 quarterback rating. It's fine, but he rushed for 75 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. That's where all of his big points came from this week. So I think Cam, until he gets the hang of the Josh McDaniels offense, is going to do some damage with his legs. I think he's got to slide a little bit more, though, Joe.
Absolutely. And then the guy he replaced, Tom Brady, I think there's no better week to get him started than against the Carolina Panthers. We just talked about it. That defense was horrible on Sunday. I think Brady finally gets it going. Worth noting, though, that 2 of his big receivers in Tampa are dealing with injuries. Mike Evans still dealing with a hamstring. And then why am I drawing a blank here?
Chris Godwin.
Thank you. I couldn't spit out the name. Chris Godwin dealing with a head injury and concussion protocol. So keep an eye on that situation. But they have lots of talent around them. But either way, I like Tom Brady this week. And to round out the other 3 starts at quarterback, Tooch, you got Big Ben versus Denver. We saw Denver last night. Kirk Cousins going against Indianapolis. Kirk looked good against Green Bay. They just couldn't get the win. And then last but not least, Matthew Stafford going against the Green Bay Packers. Points of Palooza. Not much defense for Green Bay. I think all 6 of these guys on this list, I have no problem starting.
Yes. Yeah, I'm good with all of them. Can we talk about Russell Wilson for a second? That game that he had 31 out of 35, Joe, passed 322 yards and 4 touchdowns, had a 143 quarterback rating. That wasn't the highest. Lamar Jackson had a 152 rating. He finished 20 out of 25, 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. So those guys, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, getting the job done, along with Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray, and Mitchell True, your top 7, for fantasy points.
It's a guy in deep
Matt Ryan right there too.
Yeah, deep leagues. Keep an eye on Trubisky for sure. But Tooch, let's talk about.
You mentioned Big Ben.
Yeah.
Sorry, you mentioned Big Ben. Last year, the Steelers were without Big Ben, and those wide receivers suffered. Big Ben, while he was a little bit rusty in the first half, he managed to still, get his guys rolling. Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson, both with a lot of targets. Juju had 2 touchdowns. Right back when I started, I predicted a bounce-back year for Juju Smith-Schuster. You weren't as confident as I was. What do you think the prospects for these 2 wide receivers are going forward, Joe? Do you like Juju the rest of the year?
I definitely feel a lot better about it, Tooch, after seeing Juju I think he works well with the other guys on that team. I like him the rest of the season. I still stand by the fact I think Deontay Johnson will have the better season yardage-wise. But either way, I like both of those guys to get you through your fantasy season.
Yeah, and Big Ben, he's got weapons there too. He also has Eric Ebron, and he also has James Washington. So he's got some guys to throw to. And that Steeler defense, Joe, you saw what they did to Saquon Barkley, and
the rookie Claypool as well, Tooch.
Also has Chase Claypool. So he's got his weapons. They have a decent running game with Benny Snell now, who looked really, really good running the ball. And the Steelers, they're going to give Baltimore a run for that division.
I think so. They look good. I'm excited to see what they do. And Tooch, let's talk about a couple quarterbacks that I think should ride the bench this week. I'm looking, as much as I hate to say it, I have them in a couple leagues, especially my deeper leagues with 2 QBs. But I think Tyrod Taylor against the Chiefs this week, I think you really got to consider sitting him on the pipe. He looked really, really shaky and kind of beat up in Sunday's game. He just didn't look right to me. So I don't know what that means for him. I don't know if that means Justin Herbert's going to come in the near future or if he can just clean it up. But I don't like Tyrod Taylor, and I definitely don't like the Minshew magic to continue, Tooch.
Oh.
I don't like Minshew this week against Tennessee. He was awesome last week. I'm not going to take that away from him. But he's going on the road. He's got to go down to Tennessee. And you saw how good that defense was last night, Tooch.
Yeah, great defense. Minshew completed 95% of his passes, Joe, last week.
I know.
19 out of 20, only 173 yards, but 3 touchdowns, had a 142 quarterback rating. I'm okay with starting him. I think if Tennessee gets out to a lead, I think Minshew's going to have to throw a lot. But, yeah, he wouldn't be my first choice for starting. I just think you got to sit guys like Daniel Jones. That'd be my sit.
Mm-hmm. Against the Bears, of course.
Against the Bears defense. I'm not as high on Kirk Cousins this week at Indianapolis, but we'll see.
We shall see. He looked good last week, Tooch. And
yep.
Let's move into the running back starts. Let's get these people the info that they need.
Yes.
So running back, Tooch, is an interesting shakeup this week. There's a lot of great matchups. But Tooch, the team that was worst against the run last week was the Houston Texans.
Yep.
They got absolutely torched. And because of that, I think you got to look at both Baltimore Ravens running backs.
Yes.
J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram. Both of these guys are fantastic starts. Dobbins looked good on Sunday. Ingram looked like himself. Looks old, but he doesn't look too old. I like both of these guys this week, too. Both of them, I think they both score a touchdown, and they easily both put up at least 13, 14 fantasy points.
Both of them I think I would start. Also, the Bengals gave up 148 yards rushing, so if Nick Chubb is healthy, I look for him to make a dent.
And definitely Kareem Hunt too.
Kareem Hunt, he's kind of stuck in that third down role, but he does have a lot of standalone value. So I think if anything were to happen to Nick Chubb, man, you have a great starting running back with Kareem Hunt if you're stashing him on your bench or playing him in a flex. The Vikings, of course, also gave up 139 yards rushing. They're not the same defense we're used to seeing. I like the Colts running backs this week against the Vikings.
Yeah, no doubt, brother. And we talked about Father Time, Adrian Peterson, going up against Green Bay this week. I'm licking my chops as a fantasy owner, especially in a flex spot if you got it. I love Adrian Peterson. He's getting a full workload. He gets a couple handoffs to the other guys, but he's the guy. He came out as the guy. I like him as the guy against Green Bay this week, and I expect him to score at least twice on Sunday. He could be one of the better back-end starters in the league right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I also like, the Cowboys defense took a couple blows too. I think they also were pretty bad against the run too. So we all know Atlanta's going to throw the ball. Maybe Atlanta has some success running the ball this week too with Todd Gurley against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys were the only team to lose Washington was the only team to win in the NFC East. So they're alone on top of a lot of people picked the Cowboys to win that division.
We'll see, man. The defense is good, but they got injuries. The offense has got to get rolling. Zeke looked good, but the rest of the team's got to meet up with them. And Tooch, 2 more names on this running back list for the starts. I got to go with hometown boy David Montgomery versus the Giants. The Giants looked horrendous last night. I think Montgomery is a killer start against the Giants.
Yep. I agree. I think this is if you're going to start David Montgomery, this is the week to do it against that Giants defense. I think as long as the coach is willing to commit to the run game, David Montgomery would be a good start, Joe.
For sure. And last but not least, Jonathan Taylor, the new starter in Indianapolis, going to play Minnesota. As Tooch talked about earlier, that defense is incredibly overrated. They looked absolutely horrible on Sunday. So Jonathan Taylor finally going to get the bell cow role. I'm interested to see how he takes it. I love him this week against Minnesota.
I do too. Yeah, if you drafted Jonathan Taylor in the 4th, 5th round, maybe. I think, and you got unfortunately for Marlon Mack, Jonathan Taylor gets his big break, and you get to have a number 1 running back on a team with an excellent offensive line for almost a whole season, Joe.
You're not kidding. Could work out really good for some fantasy owners. And Tooch, a couple running backs that should be benched this week. I'm going to go with all of the New England running backs, Tooch, against Seattle. That committee, I don't know if you got to watch any of the Patriots game on Sunday. It's a tough one to shake out. Even James White, right now you're really banking on somebody getting a touchdown for you. Otherwise, it's kind of a crapshoot. So I'm avoiding them, especially against Seattle. I think they're going to do a lot of throwing the ball and a lot of running with Cam's legs.
Yeah. Like we were talking about James White earlier in the show, how Tom Brady loved to dump the ball off to him. He's always right there for it. Cam Newton, instead of dumping the ball off, he's just taking off and running. I don't know what it's going to be like for James White the rest of the season. I'm not sure he's not a drop at this point, Joe. We'll see. Maybe he's a hold for you.
It's a hold. It's too early to drop. I think it's too early to drop a guy like him, but
I think it's more geared toward Sony Michel to be kind of the point scoring running back over there as Cam, will start handing off to more of a back, and Cam looking to throw downfield instead of dumping it off.
Yeah, they were, they're figuring out their offense, and I think we're going to see what happens. But for now, I want to stay away from those running backs.
Yep. My sit running back is Melvin Gordon versus that Steelers defense, Joe. And you've got Phillip Lindsay with turf toe. I don't like the Broncos running backs this week. I think they're all sits for me.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'm with you. And then, of course, you got to include Leonard Fournette on that list. Fournette, I don't think is ready yet. I don't think he knows the playbook just quite yet, and I think it's going to be a few more weeks until he's fantasy relevant.
Yeah, exactly. And Ronald Jones looked pretty good.
Ronald Jones looked pretty good. You're right.
Yep, and he's one of my starts of the week, Joe, versus that porous Panthers run defense. I think we can confidently start Ronald Jones this week.
I'm with you, brother.
Josh Jacobs just ran all over the Panthers last week.
The beast, Josh Jacobs. I want to see what he does against the Saints.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun game to watch. And Tooch, before we move on to wide receivers, we got another question in the chat, so let's answer this one. Jake wants to know, should I sell Mike Thomas for whatever I can get? I got a Galladay offer who has a hamstring. I know the high ankle is trouble unless they rest him for 6 weeks or so.
That's an interesting.
It's a tough conundrum, right? Because Michael Thomas, when he's there, is the best receiver in football.
Right. He's got a high ankle sprain, huh? Is that what the diagnosis is, right?
Yeah, and for me, it's an ankle. It's an ankle for sure.
Okay, ankle for.
So for me, I mean, it's hard for me to make that deal for Galladay because he's dealing with an injury too. He's banged up with his hammy. I think if you're going to trade Thomas, you got to trade him for someone that's healthy. I mean, I like Galladay. You don't know the severity of how long he's going to be out. I just have a hard time trading Michael Thomas after week 1. It's just tough for me.
Yeah, very tough. And he might be someone you could put on injured reserve. They know they have this 3-week injured reserve thing going on.
Yeah, I like that too. There are a lot of IR spots. If your commissioner doesn't have one, you should definitely lobby to have an IR spot, because every league that I run, I have at least 2. 2 should be the standard as far as I'm concerned. And this year, you have the ability to add COVID players to the IR spot. I made sure to include that in all my leagues, which I think is important. So if your commissioner doesn't have an IR and they don't have COVID spots, have that conversation, because you need to have a better fantasy commissioner, because I'm not going to lie, I'm the best fantasy commissioner to ever live. Isn't that right, Tooch?
That's right.
Yeah, you guys can toast me if you want, but it's the truth. I'll be your commissioner. Anyone out there, I'm looking right into the camera. You need a fantasy commissioner? I'm your guy.
Yeah, no.
I want your vote on November 3rd.
Commissioner of the year.
Yeah, what can I say? I'm tooting my own horn a little bit. But anyway, Tooch, we got to get into wide receiver starts.
All right.
Why don't you lead us off a little bit here?
Well, I like the Colts wide receivers versus the Vikings.
Oh yeah,
they're starting some less than stellar cornerbacks on the Vikings, and Paris Campbell, man, he's going to catch a slant and go all the way. Yeah, a couple times this year. You see, you got a lot of targets from Phillip Rivers underneath, and I'm not sure he might have a better season than T.Y. Hilton, but either one of those two guys I would fire up this week versus the Vikings.
Agreed. I love both those guys, and a guy making headlines for apparently wanting a trade out of Chicago, which we'll see what happens. It's just negotiation tactics. I'm sure he's going to get paid. But Allen Robinson going against the Giants this weekend. I just think that's a killer matchup. He is a must start. He's a top 3 wide receiver this week. I'll plug myself. My rankings will be out tomorrow afternoon on fantasyfootballgoon.com. So head over there and check them out. But A-Rob against the Giants is a no-brainer, guys.
Agree there. Yep. Absolutely. Got to get Allen Robinson versus the Giants. Even think about starting Anthony Miller. We talked about him earlier. Both good starts.
Agree, 100%. And Tooch, I'll take the next one. Then you can take the one after. I'll take Marquise Brown going against the Houston Texans. Texans just got lit up against Kansas City. I'm all in on my guy, Marquise Hollywood Brown. He looked amazing on Sunday. So did Lamar Miller. I mean, that Ravens team looks unbelievable.
Yeah, Houston, not a good defense, at least what they showed in this first week. I Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, both good starts. Of course, you're starting Andrews every week. You'd be dumb not to. So Marquise Brown, love that start versus Houston. Got to get him in the lineup now.
I'm with you, brother. Love me some Hollywood. And Tooch, what about the next guy on this list? This is a guy that I'm always got a chub for.
Yeah. Love it. He's the number 1 wide receiver now with Michael Thomas going down. Emmanuel Sanders. Of course, we also think you should take a look at Traquan Smith, he's got some size. And he's got some speed. He'll be filling in for Michael Thomas as well.
No doubt about it, brother. And talking about Detroit, Marvin Jones, this is a guy that you and I are always up and down on. He's a roller coaster type of player, but he's got a great matchup against the Green Bay Packers. We don't know what's going on with Kenny Galladay. So regardless of the situation, if he plays or not, you're definitely going to start Marvin Jones this week. Love me some Marvin. Got some good hands, and he's going to get a lot of targets.
I've got a couple shares of him. I'll probably fire him up in at least one of those leagues. And then your guy, Deontay Johnson, Joe, with double digits targets last week for the Steelers.
Yeah, they had a nice matchup with Denver. Yeah. I think Juju's going to command some coverage, and you'll see Deontay get more one-on-one. And those 11 targets, I guarantee you he's going to have more catches this upcoming week than he did last.
Absolutely.
And Tooch, what about some not sleepers, but some wide receivers to leave on the bench? This is a guy that has been on my list up and down. I asked you last week if I should drop this guy because I was thinking about it, and it's Christian Kirk for the Cardinals going against the Washington football team. Looks like DeAndre Hopkins is going to be like the one receiver you can count on and nobody else out there. What do you think about benching Christian Kirk? Because for me, he's on my sit list.
Well, I tell you, that Washington defense is going to generate a good pass rush, and they're going to get to Kyler Murray, so I think that's a good call. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins had over 40% of the team's target share, which is just incredible. So, your big guys were doing it. Your big three were doing it this week. They all had top games. Julio 12 targets, Devontae Adams 17 targets, DeAndre Hopkins 16 targets. Those guys were doing what you drafted them to do.
They're the big dogs, man. There's a reason they're the big dogs. There's a reason they go in the first and second round.
Other guys with big targets numbers: Amari Cooper with 14, Jamison Crowder with 13. That'd be a hot name for your waiver wire if he's still out there.
Could be. He is in some leagues.
Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and Russell Gage, all with 12 targets each. So they all caught 9 passes.
Big time right there, Tooch. Big time guys. And Tooch, another guy on my sit list here, Tooch, the rookie Jerry Jeudy at Pittsburgh this week. Cortland Sutton banged up, but he might not play in this game. Even if he does, Jerry Jeudy suffered some drops last night, Tooch. And as a number one guy going against that tough Pittsburgh defense, I just don't love him this week.
Yeah, it was his first NFL game. A lot of these rookies who were playing in their first NFL game, they had to have been nervous, even though they're not playing in front of anybody. They're still nervous. They're playing in front of cardboard cutouts and stadium noise, but it's the millions who are watching on TV as well. So DeAndre Swift dropping a last-second touchdown. Things like that, getting to the rookies. Other rookies had a lot of success. They looked like they fit right in, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and his name is J.K. Dobbins. Sorry, both looking like they belong. Yep. Henry Ruggs looking like a good player as well on the Raiders.
Yeah, he's banged up, Tooch. I'm not sure if he's going to play this week. You got to keep an eye on Henry Ruggs. Even if he does, that New Orleans secondary is tough.
Yeah, it's a good secondary. Yep.
But my other sit, Tooch, is a guy you just talked about, Jamison Crowder. I know he had a great week 1, Tooch.
Yep.
But who's he got to go up against week 2? The 49ers.
Yeah, they're playing San Francisco, the Jets, in New York.
I don't know off the top of my head, but
I think it's
either way, I think he's going to be he's going to command some coverage, and I'm not expecting huge things out of Crowder this week. Before we move on,
I look for the 49ers defense to bounce back. So
I think they'll bounce back too. I think they'll bounce back too, but before we move on, Tooch, any more wide receiver sits in your mind?
Let's see.
It's all right if you don't got one. We can move on. We can touch base on it more later. I know your guy. I know you were telling me earlier about benching Sammy Watkins, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't seem to be getting as many. And the Chiefs are going against a tough defense as well. So, man, it's that'd be a good sit. I probably wouldn't have started him anyways.
Yeah, for sure, brother. But let's move into tight end starts for the week, Tooch. And a guy that I'm high on this week and for the rest of the season, I love Hunter Henry. He's going to be a safety blanket down there, and he gets a great matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, Tooch. Hunter Henry is a guy that I think is going to be a great start this week, especially in daily fantasy. This is a guy that's going for ridiculously cheap. I expect Hunter Henry to have a nice week.
Yeah, and surprisingly, Tyrod Taylor was airing the ball out to Mike Williams and
Keenan
Allen. Hunter Henry has a decent matchup this week.
Yeah, I expect their game plan to change drastically. I don't think you'll see deep balls like you did last week, but we'll see. Tyrod Taylor hangs on to that position for now. But Tooch, why don't you talk about our next tight end? Because this is a guy you and me keep talking about all offseason long.
Oh, Hayden Hurst. Yeah, and like I said, Dallas got a lot weaker in the middle of the field. So and Hayden Hurst ran a lot of routes, last week at home against the Seahawks. So even though it didn't show up, so much in fantasy, I still would stick with Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, I say he's a guy that a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter say, "Oh man, Hayden Hurst is a bust, fantasy bust." I'm like, first off, it's 1 week. Secondly, this is a guy that if you want to trade him to me, I'll trade for him right now. That's a guy you got to target. Hayden Hurst. This guy's going to blow up everybody. I'm telling you.
He was going against Jamal Adams,
Yeah.
So,
there's people that'll just say anybody's a bust, but
yeah.
What about Jared Cook too? This is a guy going against the Raiders on Monday night.
I love this start. This is a great start with Michael Thomas out because Jared Cook, a really big target, they're in the middle of the field. So yeah, I love this start too, Joe.
And that new stadium in Las Vegas is impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing it on Monday.
Very nice. I'm looking forward to seeing it as well. It's going to be a great Monday night game. We got a great Sunday night game too. Two great games to finish the week.
New England and Seattle. That's good stuff right there, Tooch.
Two great games.
What about the other Eagles tight end, Tooch?
Yeah, like we said, I think you and I talked about this before the show, is that they're focusing on Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert finding himself alone. He was probably the top number one tight end, him and Mark Andrews. It's tough if you drafted Zach Ertz, but I guess there's room for two tight ends in Philadelphia. So both probably good starts as Carson Wentz focuses on his two best receiving weapons, which happen to be tight ends.
Yeah, kind of got that Aaron Hernandez, Gronk duo vibes going on.
Yep.
Except there's no murders happening. Sorry, too soon. I don't know. I thought it was. Anyway, moving on. Tooch, what about Tyler Higbee? This is a guy that has been so consistent. The end of the season last year, I think he had 4 or 5 straight 100-yard games. He didn't do it the other night, but he's still heavily involved. And Philadelphia, not the best team against the tight end, Tooch.
No, and Logan Thomas, he diced him up. Speaking of another streaming tight end name, he's got a fairly decent matchup. But yeah, at the tight end position, he's got a good matchup there, Joe. It's a guy you and I talked about. We expect big things there too. Tyler Higbee had 3 catches, 75 yards. So
yeah, the guy. I mean, you can't fault him. I mean, the kid's going to be fantastic. That's one of the best values you can get at tight end in this league. And Tooch, why don't you give our listeners your super sleeper at tight end?
And that's Logan Thomas, right, Joe? Against the
you said your super sleeper is Dan Arnold.
Right, Dan Arnold of the Cardinals, who is a secret weapon, according to Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. Is there a guy that you might hear about, and he's got a good matchup against the Redskins. So watch out for Dan Arnold, who's their pass receiving tight end.
His uncle Benedict is busy this week.
Super sleeper.
He is a super sleeper, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
Nobody will start him, Joe.
No, probably not.
It's a good name to look for in the future down the road.
Hey, we're the flyer, especially if you're in a deep league. Like I'm a 16-man IDP crazy players league. It's insane. I lost my first matchup, but moving on to week 2 in that one in the Blitz league. But Tooch, let's talk a little bit about defense quickly.
Yeah.
And we're not even going to talk about kickers because we hate kickers on this show.
Nobody
We don't hate them, but we like dome kickers. If you're kicking the dome, you're okay with us. But Tooch, we talked about the Steelers, great matchup against the Broncos. And I really think the three teams you got to look at, you got to look at the Steelers versus the Broncos, the 49ers playing the New York Jets, and then the Bills playing the Miami Dolphins. I think those are your three fantasy matchups you got to look at.
Yep. Yeah, that's where the anytime a team is going against the Steelers, man, I think you got to consider starting your fantasy players at whatever position. The Steelers have just a really excellent defense.
Yep, that's why I got a lot of shares of the Steelers defense this year. And too, there's some weak starts at defense. The Eagles playing the Rams, that's a tough one. The Rams offense looked good. Same thing, the Saints defense. They're playing the Raiders. And the Raiders offense looked really good last week. I'm not saying you got to bench the Saints, but if you got a better option, I'd roll with them.
Yeah, Rams defense a little bit better than we expected too, Joe.
Yeah, they are.
One into Dallas and one there, shutting down the Cowboys.
No doubt, brother. And then I got to say, I don't think anyone's starting the Browns defense, but I think they definitely got to get benched against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Joe Burrow and company are going to dice them up. I'm expecting that game to be very high scoring. Bench the Browns.
Speaking of rookies that didn't look calm in their first game. Joe Burrow. Hopefully bounces back this week against the Browns, and Browns just happened that it's just a mess there, Joe. I don't know the coaching. It's
rough. Number one pick against number one pick this week, too. You got Burrow versus Baker.
Yeah.
B versus B.
Man, I think I don't know about Baker Mayfield, Joe. I just don't think he's that good.
I can't stand those commercials that he's in where he's, he lives in the stadium and he acts like it's his house. I don't know. I've seen him so many times. I'm just over it, Tooch.
Yeah, I think Mayfield droppable, Joe, if you have him.
He should not be owned right now until we see more out of him. Unless you're in a super deep league, like a 17-man, 16-man league, Baker should not be owned.
Right on.
But Tooch, we made it through our starts and our sits, but now let's get to our start of the week and our sits of the week for you and me. So without further ado, let's jump into our quarterback start of the week, Tooch. Who do you have as your start of the week at quarterback?
Well, I'm going to go with, if you're streaming quarterbacks, I'm going to take Ryan Tannehill at home versus the Jaguars.
He had a lot of zip on his ball yesterday, man. He looked good.
Yep. They're playing well within their offense, and of course you've got Derrick Henry, you've got AJ Brown, and Jonnu Smith. Even Corey Davis, who's been horrible for years, there has had over 100 yards receiving.
Yeah. Well, and you're definitely not starting Steven Gostkowski because he murdered fantasy games this week for people. 3 missed field goals.
Right.
So don't start him. Who knows if he even makes it through the week as a Titan. We'll see.
Right.
But my quarterback start of the week, guys, I'm going to go with Jared Goff against the Eagles. I know a lot of people don't like that matchup, but I like what I saw out of Goff, and I like what that offense is doing. I think they're going to have a different game plan this week, and I think Goff is going to have a good game. So I like me some Jared Goff against the Eagles, Tooch.
When you're able to run the ball like the Rams did with Malcolm Brown,
opens it up.
It opens up that passing game. Robert Woods, 8 catches over 100 yards, doing what he does. You've got Cooper Kupp and Higbee and Everett and Malcolm Brown. There's weapons in Los Angeles, and like we said, their defense a lot better than we thought they'd be.
Like, you can't argue with that, brother. And why don't you go into your running back start of the week, Tooch?
Right, I'm going to take Ronald Jones versus the Panthers, who gave up, a lot of mileage versus the Raiders and Josh Jacobs. So I think Ronald Jones should have 100 yards and a touchdown versus the Panthers. I think that's a good start as he's been given some competition. He's performing a lot better with the competition from Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, Ronald Jones could easily be the steal of the draft, Tooch, where he's coming in right now in fantasy.
Yeah, I like that matchup. Panthers run defense, probably one of the worst, if not the worst, in the league. All right.
For sure, brother. And I'm going to go to my running back start at the start of the week, and I got to go with my guy, Malcolm Brown. Against the East guy is a bell cow. Malcolm Brown is going to be probably top 15, maybe top 10 running back, if things continue the way they are.
Yeah, he's, like I said, Joe, he's the lead dog there in St. Louis in Los Angeles, and they do like their lead backs. I know that Sean McVay said he wants to, be more like San Francisco's running back committee. Yeah. But right now, I mean, Malcolm Brown, like I said, he's the veteran there. He's been there 5 years in that system. The other two guys are younger backs, and I think this coaching staff trusts Malcolm Brown a lot more than the other two guys. That could change later on in the season. You might see more of a committee. But right now, Malcolm Brown is the lead dog.
He is the lead dog, Tooch. Malcolm Brown is a beast. You were touting him all offseason, so props to the Tooch for Malcolm Brown.
Well, it was like everyone was saying, well, hey, Cam Akers, and Darrell Henderson. I'm like, hey, Malcolm Brown, he's been there for quite a while. Last year he came out of the gate strong too. Then he got hurt. And we figured, the Rams signed him that kept him from going in free agency. I think someone else had offered, wanted to sign him. They matched the offer and kept Malcolm Brown. So it's not like they don't like him. I just figured, everyone was discounting him. I just didn't see it. I think Malcolm Brown is probably their best running back, and he showed it in the last game against the Cowboys.
I mean, it's the truth. You can't fight the truth, Tooch, especially in fantasy.
He's going to be
yardages.
Waiver wire pickup, Joe. Everyone's going to be trying to get him.
If he's not on your team, go get him.
Yeah.
And Tooch, our wide receiver start of the week, I'll give you mine first. I'm going to take Jarvis Landry against the Bengals. I think they're going to use him heavily against that Bengals team. I like me some Jarvis Landry this week. He just gets it done. And Odell, rumors today swirling that the Browns have Odell Beckham Jr. on the trade block. I'm interested to see what comes out of that, but it doesn't mean good things for Odell.
Ever since he became a number 2 receiver, Joe, things have gone downhill for Odell.
Where's the fart drop when I need it?
But, yeah, I did not have a great game last week, and Jarvis Landry just does what he does. He gets open, and he catches, nine balls for 50 yards. Last year he started to get into the end zone a little more, but let's say Odell Beckham does leave the Browns. They don't have much else. I don't think, Joe, behind.
They would have to get some trade pieces.
Yeah, I mean, you still have Rashard Higgins there. They've got another guy. Just his name escapes me. But I think they're going to be in trouble if they're just down to Landry. But hey, Landry's stock would go up, Joe, if Odell would go away.
His stock would go up, too. And real quick, we got another question in the chat.
Yeah.
JXN Jingle Z. Should I start Kenyon Drake, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, or J.K. Dobbins? Wow, what a great running back core, too.
Oh, can you read those again? That was nice. I got a little excited there.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake, Chubb, Taylor, and Dobbins. That's really good stuff.
Yeah, well, we like the Ravens, so we're putting Dobbins out there. Let's see. Kenyon Drake is. Let's see. He's home against Washington.
They had a really good defense, Washington, this week.
Has a good defense, but let's see, and then you got, was it Chubb?
Chubb against the Bengals.
Bengals were terrible against the run, so I like Chubb. It's just that I think he's in concussion protocol right now. I could be wrong, but
he's a little banged up, but I think he's probably going to play. But just keep an eye on him.
So right now, Chubb and Dobbins, and who's the other?
Jonathan Taylor, another great start against Minnesota.
Taylor, I would start Taylor and Dobbins. So I'm going with the two rookies. But does he only need 2 or does he need 3?
He just said, should I start? He said he didn't say how many. If you're still in the chat room, Jingle Z, please tell us if those are your main starters and how many you can start. But out of that list,
I hate to sit Kenyon Drake, because while Washington has a good defense, they're traveling all the way across country, and that run game for the Cardinals is really good. Their offensive system for running the ball.
He said we only get to pick one out of that list.
Oh, wow! I'm going with that. Let's see. Chubb's got a great matchup.
Man, it's rough. Dobbins is a great matchup, but he's not the main starter.
Right.
I'm out of that list, Tooch. I think I got to go with Jonathan Taylor.
I'm going to go with Taylor also.
Taylor's got a great matchup against Minnesota.
Yep.
And as you saw earlier in the show, Marlon Mack out for the year with a torn Achilles.
Yeah.
So go with Jonathan Taylor.
Yep. Well,
his RB1 is Dalvin Cook.
Oh, Cook is there against the Colts.
Cook against the Colts? I mean, that's a good matchup too. You have no problems. I like that running back core, man. Very nicely done.
Yeah, I like Cook as well. Just because Dobbins is splitting time with Mark Ingram. Then you got Kenyon Drake at home against the Redskins. I don't hate that matchup. I know Washington's pretty good. I don't like Washington that much when they're traveling all the way across the country. And, they'll put some pressure on Kyler Murray in the passing game. I'm not so sure that the Cardinals can't run the ball, though.
Booyah, Grandma.
So, but Taylor and Cook, I guess I would go with that right now because Cook, the Vikings still can run the ball.
I agree, man. You got to ground it and pound it.
Yep.
And Tooch, why don't you tell we were on your start of the week for wide receivers. Why don't you talk a little bit about your wide receiver starts for this week?
Well, I love the Colts wide receivers versus the Vikings too. The Vikings wide receivers the cornerbacks just aren't that good. The Colts wide receivers, I talked about Paris Campbell. This is, he's kind of like a Terry McLaurin, one of those fast guys. He's got some real speed. So he's coming out of the slot, and Phillip Rivers, Phillip Rivers, let's just be honest, he doesn't throw the ball that far anymore, Joe. He's arm strength isn't what it used to be. So that's why he likes to dump off to Hines, and he likes those slants across the middle like he used to give to Keenan Allen when he was in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So Paris Campbell, underneath from the slot, I like that matchup versus the Vikings cornerbacks.
I dig it, brother. And let's move on to tight end. Our starts of the week at tight end. My start of the week, Noah Fant. I do like him against the Steelers. I know it's a tough matchup, Tooch, but this is a guy that I think they're going to use heavily. If Cortland Sutton does play, in addition to Judy, that'll open things up more. I like Fant better if Sutton plays in this game, but definitely something to start and not keep an eye on. I love Fant the rest of the season. I'd like to get him in whatever leagues I can.
Yeah, again, like I said, it's a tough matchup versus the Steelers. That Steelers defense is tough.
It's tough. Like I said, Sutton playing helps him.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Fant is a good athletic tight end. It wouldn't be my first choice. I love Fant the rest of the season, though, man. I love his long-term prospects for the season. I just don't like anybody against the Steelers. Especially with a young quarterback like Drew Lock, who's better than we thought,
Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, and my tight end start of the week is, I mentioned, Hayden Hurst versus the Cowboys, especially with Leighton Vander Esch going down in the middle of that Vikings defense. And Hayden Hurst, we saw, ran a lot of routes. versus the Seahawks. He was out there for most of the snaps. So I think you got to keep with Hayden Hurst. I think you're gonna see the production this week.
I love it, man. Hayden Hurst is a guy you and I are both high on.
Yeah.
And Tooch, let's go to our sits of the week, the guys that you got to ride on your bench. Who's your sit of the week? We each only, we picked two guys. We picked our main sit of the week and then our honorable mention.
Yes.
Tooch, who's your sit of the week?
I'm going to sit Melvin Gordon versus the Steelers against that defense that Saquon Barkley only had like 9 yards rushing versus the Steelers. So I'm going to take Melvin. I'm going to sit the Broncos running backs versus the Steelers.
What about your honorable mention, Tooch?
I will sit Daniel Jones versus the Bears defense.
Very good.
Good cornerback play of the Bears, I think will. New York has got some talented wide receivers. You saw Darius Slayton putting up 2 touchdowns again. He's a guy that just catches touchdown passes. I don't know if you remember Chris Carter, Joe. Used to be a long time player for the Vikings and the Eagles. Chris Carter and Buddy Ryan used to say he just catches touchdown passes. Well, that's what Darius Slayton does.
True.
He was a guy you could get in the last round of the draft, which I just don't get it. I guess maybe because Daniel Jones is his quarterback and the Giants have a tough schedule, especially at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to sit Daniel Jones, though. I just wasn't impressed with the kid this I think teams' defenses have figured out how to get to this kid, and then he's got a rough schedule at the beginning. Maybe late in the season you'll see him come out, maybe second half of the season, and be a good guy you could start at quarterback.
There you go, brother. And my sit of the week is Odell Beckham Jr. versus the Bengals on Thursday night. Rumblings about him being on the trade block, Tooch, and I don't like his matchup here. I think it's going to be a Jarvis Landry game. So I'm sitting Odell if I can. And my honorable mention is Gardner Minshew going down to Tennessee to play the Titans on the road. It's a tough matchup for him. I don't think he's going to perform as well as he did last week.
The power of the mustache Joe doesn't like this week.
Don't.
Yeah, the Titans are a tough defense too. It's a division game. There might be some garbage time though, Joe, for Minshew, but yeah, I could see him struggling. But this is a guy this is a Jaguars team that doesn't really care. They're just going to go. They know people have written them off, so they're just going to go. Mm-hmm. They're just going out and playing ball. They've got guys like James Robinson and
Laviska
Shenault. They're just going to go out and kind of bang you up on offense. Minshew's he knows he's got some guys who can play, so he's got a little moxie. But I love Minshew is a guy I think you want on your bench. In case your starter goes down, you can just plug him right in and ride the rest of the season. That's why
absolutely.
I like. I've got him as a backup on a few of my teams.
Oh yeah, and Tooch, before we have a new trash talk segment for this week. So every week we're going to ask you guys for fantasy trash talk, the best trash talk in your league. Send it to us on Twitter. But before we get to that, Tooch, we'll do some rapid fire. We got a bunch of questions here in the chat.
Oh boy! All right.
So M-Dub, Amari Cooper, T.Y. Hilton, Cooper Kupp, Jarvis Landry. Who do I sit this week? So that's a tough one right there. Yeah. But I'm sitting Cooper Kupp out of those guys. I like all the matchups for everybody else. Tooch?
Yeah, Hilton, I picked the wide receivers of the Colts this week, so you're definitely starting them. Let's see. The Cowboys are – where are the Cowboys? They're at
Atlanta.
Home. They're at home against the Falcons. So, yeah, that's going to be a shootout. So you want to get Amari Cooper in there. And then who else? Who'd you say, Joe?
Jarvis Landry and Cooper Kupp.
Kupp and the Rams.
I like Jarvis better. I think he's got a great matchup this week.
Rams are at the road against the Eagles. The Eagles' pass defense probably the best of that bunch who Rams are getting. And Robert Woods seems to be have a better season than Kupp. Kupp always surprises, but yeah, out of those four, I think I would sit Kupp as well.
I'm with you. And then Tooch, the next question we addressed earlier on the show, but we're going to address it now. Jacob Piccolo wants to know Malcolm Brown or Naheem Hines off waivers, non-PPR. We said in PPR it should be Hines, but I think if you don't have a PPR league, Tooch, I think Malcolm Brown's the better ad.
Yep, I agree. Malcolm Brown, non-PPR, Hines, and PPR.
Because Brown will probably end up scoring more touchdowns than Hines.
Brown got all of the goal line carries in that game.
Yep, so that's a guy that you definitely want to get ripping. Like both guys, but I think Brown is a little bit better in non-PPR.
Yeah, Hines I would take in PPR just because there's guaranteed pass-catching role with Phillip Rivers, the quarterback who loves to dump the ball off to the running back the most in NFL history.
And then we got another question. They just keep coming. Breeze or Ryan for week 2? It's tough. Both teams are great. I prefer Drew Brees against that Raiders secondary. I think Brees will probably have a good day at the office. Tooch, you agree?
Brees or Matt Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always starting Matt Ryan just because he throws the ball 50 times a game. So
I mean, I like both guys. I just think Brees is ranked a little higher playing against Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm going to take I'll still take Matt Ryan with Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and Hayden Hurst.
All right. And continuing the rapid fire.
Do a little bet there for a little maybe an airline bottle of whiskey, Joe.
Yeah, we could do that. So if
did we have a bet last week, you and me?
Yeah, we talked about Deontay Johnson versus Juju.
Oh, okay. So what?
I have Deontay to have more receiving yards than Juju.
Okay, it wasn't more fantasy points.
It was receiving yards.
And Johnson won, right?
No, it was for the season.
Oh, okay, for the season, right? Okay. So this is just for this week. We might get whiskey sooner than Joe. We don't have to wait till the end of the season to get our.
I'll take Drew Brees to have a better day at the office than Matt Ryan this week.
I'll take Matt Ryan then. Matt Ryan versus Brees. That's our whiskey bet. The fantasy footballers always
next week.
They make a water bet where Joe and I make a whiskey bet because whiskey's better than water, Joe.
I'm not going to argue with that. I got some of that Iowa whiskey right here, Tooch.
Oh, nice.
Anyway,
Very
continuing
nice.
with the rapid fire before we move on to the trash talk. CX Lids 2K. I have Connor and I have the number 1 waiver claim. Do I go Robbie, Hines, or Snell? I think if you're replacing Connor, I think
you got to get Snell.
It's tough. I wish I knew if it was PPR or not. CX. Oh, it is PPR. He says it is PPR. He says, do I go for Robbie, Hines, Snell, or Brown? Brown is a starter in this league. And he's going to be the starter even when the guys are back. So I'm going Brown out of all those guys in your instance to replace Connor. Tooch, would you agree with that? Or do you say go with Hines and get the PPR?
Well, if it's Connor you're looking to replace, I probably would go Snell. But I think you could, since it's PPR, you could go either. What I would do is put a waiver claim in for both, and then make sure you get one of them at least. Well, he's got the number 1 claim though, right?
Yeah. So I think if it's a PPR league, I'm taking Hines.
Yeah, if it's PPR, I'll take Hines as well too. Because when Connor comes back, Snell may not have that.
You're right. Yeah. Yep. So go for Hines. I love it.
Yep.
And with that, Tooch, we got through the questions that are there. If you have more questions, get them in there. We'll answer them before the end of the show. But we're going to move on to a brand new segment here, Tooch. This is something you and I have been talking about this offseason. Fantasy football trash talk is one of the biggest portions of the game. Now, we want to hear your trash talk every week. Send it to us on Twitter at FFBGoon, at Joe Mandel, at Santucci_John. We want to see the best fantasy trash talk from your league because there's nothing better than fantasy trash talk. Isn't that right, Tooch?
That's right. Love the trash talk.
So we have a brand new segment. We got a great entry this week into Trash Talking with Goon and Tooch. So let's take a little deep dive into this week's Trash Talking with Goon and Tooch.
This is Trash Talking with the Goon and Tooch.
This week's submission comes from Andy LaFata at Hero Plenty on Twitter. He says, "Gotta love fantasy football smack talk. Here's my message to the other losers in the league as we get ready to draft. Hashtag fantasy life."
All right, I just wanted to wish everyone a spectacular draft and a great season overall. It is badass to be in the best fucking fantasy league in the nation. Personally, I'd love to be there, but me and some of my select rowdy season ticket holders, we've been busy fucking your wives and all your girlfriends while you all attended the draft. And fellas, they were coming too. Hope you've been having fun tonight. We've been. Cheers.
They're just words, Nettie. Words can't hurt you. Ow! That's it! You have a problem with the way I'm coaching?
No. It's just that, well, like I was yelling earlier, it seems like anyone with half a brain could coach better than you.
Uh-huh. Half a brain, huh? Well, you know what? It sounds like you just volunteered.
And that, my friends, is Trash Talking with the Goon and Tooch. Our first entry. Huge thank you for that. And remember, everybody, send your trash talk every single week to us. Get featured on the show. We want to hear it. We want to see it. And we know how important trash talking is in fantasy football.
I thought I was going to get trash talk, Joe. I deserved it. I lost 2 out of 3 of my leagues, though. I'm still alive in guillotine. But I needed James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster last night and got Juju, but Conner left, with only 3 or 4 points. So otherwise, I probably would have came back in that one.
Brother. James Conner dealing with another injury.
Man, I really thought he was going to have a great year this year, but, he seems to be one of those players that's injury prone. Lesson learned.
He is definitely injury prone. You can't argue with that. But Tooch, we made it all the way through. We talked about all the injuries. We talked about the waiver pickups. We talked about the matchups. So now it's up to you guys. Get out there and make your waiver claims. It is Tuesday night, so most fantasy leagues process waivers in the morning. So get that claim in right now. We're in a guillotine. We're in a guillotine league, right? We have our waivers tomorrow afternoon. Yahoo, Sleeper, they all process overnight. So get to work is right, Tooch.
Yep. Saquon Barkley is on waivers in our guillotine league. So is George Kittle.
Yes, big names. George Kittle banged up and Saquon Barkley, not much running room, but we have 1,000 fake bucks to spend, Tooch. So maybe one of us will get them.
Right. And it was a perfect storm for that owner who Saquon Barkley, held to a single-digit rushing yards, and George Kittle only 4 catches. And then I think his other star was DJ Moore, who, did okay, but he didn't get much production from anybody else.
No, not a lot of production, a lot of bad luck, and he did not live to see another day. So good old Al from our league has been chopped.
Love Al. Wish Al the best. Well, Joe and I are moving on.
We're moving on. We're moving on to week 2. And we neither of us want to get chopped this week. So there's lots of waiver claims to be made, lots of players out there.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, I got Adrian Peterson starting this week as opposed to on the bench, Tooch.
Oh, good. Yep, very good. Yep.
So you got to roll with AP. But it's been a fun show, guys. Thanks to everyone who hung around in the chat room.
Yep, thanks for all the questions.
Yeah, thank you for all the questions. And we got more questions. My Lord. So we'll hammer out these 2 questions, Tooch, and then we'll close it out. So I shoot IV. Should I trade Michael Thomas and Jamison Crowder for Michael Gallup, Calvin Ridley, and Nick Chubb? Full PPR. Please help.
I like yes, I would trade. I would make the trade. I think Ridley might have a better season than Michael Thomas this year. And then they're picking up Nick Chubb. I do like Jamison Crowder this year, but, Michael Thomas, you may only have him for half a season with that high ankle sprain.
Yeah, those ankle injuries linger. I think that's a risk you're willing to take in this case. I think you make that trade. I like that trade a lot, actually.
Me too. Yep. Nick Chubb still, I think, last year 1,400 yards. I think he'll probably get over 1,000 this year as well. So I would make that trade. Love Calvin Ridley this season.
Me too. And then lastly, MDub24, Hunter Henry or Darren Waller. That's tough. I like both of these guys a lot. Hunter Henry is my start of the week, but I still got to go with my guy Darren Waller against the Saints. Las Vegas offense looked very good last week. They got a great running game to open things up. So I'm going to go with Darren Waller, the baller here, Tooch.
I like Waller at home as well. Chiefs defense is underrated. You still got the Honey Badger out there. He's probably going to get some licks in on Henry. I'll take Waller at home.
I'm with you, brother. I am with you. I mean, I love both those guys. You got some good backups there, M-Dub.
Henry plenty of targets.
And then I Shoot IV just responded back. Thank you very much. I just accepted it. Prayers.
We're very good.
We're glad to help, brother. Yeah, I mean, you got to improve your team however you can. And regardless of how long Thomas is out, ankle injuries linger. So that's definitely something you got to think about.
Absolutely. That could linger the whole season.
And then last but not least, we do have one more in here. Someone was a little late to the party, but it's okay. I believe he was busy having his first child. One of my neighbors, Dave Riley. I'm sorry, second child. So congratulations to Dave there. I haven't heard to him, but I'm going to have to reach out to him in a little bit. But
is it a boy or a girl?
I don't know, but maybe he'll tell us in the chat room. But regardless, Dave, I'm going to answer this question for you. Thoughts on Hines and Malcolm Brown? We love both of these guys, Dave. We talked on the show about how if you're in a PPR league, we like Hines better because he's going to have the route.
Yep.
He's going to have that role for him. Ironed out. He's going to catch passes every week. Rivers likes to chuck it down. And then Malcolm Brown, if you're not in a PPR, but he's going to score more touchdowns. Put a claim in for both of them. We like both these guys a lot.
Yep, I'm right there with you. The guy who throws the ball to the running back the most in NFL history is Hines' quarterback. So
that's Phillip Rivers for all you fantasy folks. And Dave commented back too. She said that it's a boy. So
all right, congratulations, very good.
Congratulations, Dave, on your second boy
in the future.
Yes, Tooch, Dave is actually in the Guillotine League with us.
All right, very nice. He survived. Congratulations for surviving.
He did survive, and he survived, having a second boy now. And we'll have to have a couple beers in celebration soon, Dave. So thank you for tuning in, brother. Appreciate it. And then Dave has a nice comment here. I wonder if Hines turns into Eckler. He could.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You saw what Phillip Rivers did for Eckler last season, right?
Yeah, he did well.
Just saying, right? We might have to do a show that's all questions and answers, Joe.
We will. We went a lot longer than we were expecting tonight, but that's okay.
Sunday morning.
Yeah. And we'll take this opportunity to pimp the Barfly Tailgate show every Sunday morning for the Bears pregame show.
Great show last week, too.
Great show last week. Every Sunday on the Bears Bar Room, and right here, right, the same channel, you can catch the Barfly Tailgate show. And Tooch and I make an appearance towards the tail end of that show to give you the live Sunday updates. So make sure you tune in for great pregame content. It's a fantastic show. And Tooch, we got one more question, and I'm cutting it after this one.
Okay.
CX Lids, should I give Connor another week or two before I try to trade him? Yes. He's a starting running back for the Steelers.
If you get a good offer for trade, I might consider it.
Well, I don't know how good of an offer you're going to get when he's dealing with a
depends on what you
injury.
Get. Yeah. But if you're thinking about cutting him, I'm holding him.
Yeah, I'm holding on James Conner for a little while, especially we'll see how bad his injury is. Maybe he'll be okay.
It's tough with Phillip Lindsay too. He's got an injury too. Is he a hold or a cut? What if you have Conner and Lindsay, Joe?
It's rough.
There, you got to think. You
gotta hope one of them gets put on IR so you can stash them.
Yes. Yep.
But that's the words of wisdom for this week, guys. This was the Fantasy Football Goon podcast. We really appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Everyone that's been in the chat all night. I mean, we've seen, Dave Riley, MDub24, JBra1, CX Lids, MDubs24. You had Ron Ruppnow in there earlier. You had Jake. You had Adam Sham, Aaron Current, Louis Vallejo, Chi-Town Buster, Bobby Bombs.
Wow.
I mean, Swanky32 was there to start the show. So thank you all for hanging out with us all night and listening to the Fantasy Football Goon podcast.
For China this week?
No, I don't think we saw an appearance from a lot of China.
I love a lot of China.
I know, don't we all? But like I was saying, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Good luck in all your waiver claims. Get them in. Hopefully you get everyone you want. And good luck in your Week 2 matchups. Head over to fantasyfootballgoon.com tomorrow. Our rankings will be live sometime in the afternoon for Week 2. So check that out if you need any help. And then make sure you hit us up on Twitter. You can hit me up at Joe Mandel on Twitter. Tooch, people can hit you up at Santucci_John. And then you can hit up our Fantasy Football Goon account at FFBGoon. We answer all questions all season long. So don't forget to send us your questions. How about it, Tooch?
Send them our way. On Sundays, we were answering a lot of questions last Sunday. Saturday.
We were.
Yep.
Lots of questions, a lot of trades. We'll diagnose. We'll break it down for you. We're here to help, man. And ladies and gentlemen, that was the Fantasy Football Goon podcast for this week. A huge thanks to Aldo Gandia of the Barroom Network for letting us do this every single week. And a huge thank you to everyone else who does shows on this network. You guys are great. You're fantastic. You saw 2 ads before the start of the show. You saw the Buffon 55 ad. Of course, that's a fantastic show going on all year long. Buffon is so fired up. And then Bare Your Souls with Aldo and Dan Aguirre.
Man, it was so good. Have you listened to Bare Your Souls yet, Joe?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It was excellent, man. Plus, you got the Mike North advantage. He was picking winners last week. You just got to listen.
You got to listen to all the shows on the network. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
Hit up the podcast stream anywhere you can listen to podcasts, and then come back and rewatch the video if you want to watch the video. But it's been a fantastic week. Thank you guys for listening to the Fantasy Football Goon podcast. And Tooch, a huge thank you to which way are you? That way. You're this way. For hanging out with me all night and dealing the fantasy goodness.
Yes, thank you, Joe. It's always a pleasure. Love answering questions from the chat with all the barflies. Good luck to everyone this week in your leagues.
That's right. Good luck in your matchups. May the odds be ever in your favor. And kick some ass in your matchups. And we'll see you guys back here for week 3 prep next week. But good luck and thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.